time. So we've got our employee already mostly set up here, demo data and all. I'm going to come over to the badge area and say generate just to get a badge or a token here. We'll see about why on that later. Come into the contract and we'll do just a little bit of setup here. So I'm going to choose the USA employee one. We did write the USA localization. So this is the payroll form for USA. So we'll say like OWL, and we get a bunch of extra fields, right? So these are, oh, we need to edit that. So we will get, all of these are the new 2020 W4 information, stuff like that. We also have, say, North Carolina. We have per state fields and stuff. For ease of use, I'm going to just use Florida. Let's save. Come over to salary information. We have this already set up. So let's go ahead and go and look at some payroll rules and stuff, right? So nowadays, payroll rules are grouped by their structure. And they're in order of sequence. So what do I mean by sequence? Well, unlike say CSS z-index, we don't want to just go to 1,000,000 and just stay there. We really need them to fill into two kind of main important slots. One is gross, before or after. So in the case of maybe wage, like a bonus or something like that, it needs to be before gross or lower than gross, lower sequence. Likewise, if we go to, if we scroll past all these employee deduction rules and get down here, we'll eventually get to net salary, which is at 200. And obviously anything we need to do that would actually change how much an employee gets paid needs to happen before this, otherwise it just won't happen. So let's go ahead and hit create. Garnishment rules are per government body and things like that, usually with an account number per employee. So we'll say, Florida number 123 for the account number for it. This is a deduction. Let's go ahead and use EE underscore Garn FL 123. Sequence 5 is no good for us. We're going to want to be right before net. So let's go ahead and say 199 for the time being. Choose the same structure we were looking at. Obviously, it's going to appear on the payslip. We have to tell the employee why we're doing it. And for the easiest rule ever, we'll just go -50 right there. So who is going to get this? Ultimately, you'll get either an account number or a organization that's going to be collecting this stuff. So we'll say garnishments. Create that on the fly, and we'll hit save. Now, pro tip, if you're using Ebu's payroll accounting integration and stuff, then we have some server actions up here that we can run to fill in this information for you to make it a little easier. It does work off of various prefixes like basic, allowance, EE, ER, etc. to be able to determine which accounts should be used, and it's a little customization, but that's not customizable, but that's something we can work on there. So let's go ahead and go over to Payslips and create some Payslips. So if I pull OWL here, here, we'll say compute sheet. And we'll note that our $50 is coming off of their calculation, essentially, and meaning that we're reducing this net salary by $50 additional dollars. But we do have a little bit of a problem, which is that if I create one for my other employee, the only other employee in this particular company, he's also getting that $50, and that's no good. So let's go ahead and edit that rule. We can just pop it out right here. And what we really need to do is give it a condition. So we'll go ahead and say Python expression, and you'll note that we have a lot of things that are a lot of variables that are available for us to do this. Most important one is employee, and what we really need to do is be assigning a result with something that's truthy, like this net of something is bigger than 10% of net, etc. So we'll say result equals employee dot barcode equal double equal, not single equal. Now this is a string, so I put a apostrophe around it. You could use double quotes, etc. We'll hit save, compute sheet, and just like magic, that $50 disappeared off of this employee's payslip. But if we go back over to this one and compute sheet, it will remain here. All right, so the next one, so that's one down, right? And the next one we want to make is a kind of contract based, meaning that we want to go into the contract salary information over here and put in some kind of medical deduction. To be able to do that, I'm going to need to add a field to the database. You could use Studio to do this or something. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. You'll be able to follow along because of the fact that it's recorded. So let's go to models in the database. We'll find hr.contract. And we will edit this, scroll all the way down here, and add a new field. So this is going to be dead medical Field type is going to be a float, meaning that it's numeric type, and we'll call medical deduction. Save and close. Save. Now we're going to need to add it to the view. So we'll go ahead and go back over to an employee, and specifically their contract. And we will edit the form view. So we want this to go, down into the salary information, which is called information, or it's a page named information. So let's go ahead and make a new view here. And we'll give it an XPath. /group. Move that. Oops. Technically, that should be a lowercase d there. And we'll say field. All right. Let's cross our fingers and hit refresh here. And we should be able to go over to this page over here, and we have our new medical deductions field. And let's go ahead and say that this is 133. Well, by convention, we'll go ahead and type it as a positive value here, but it will need to be negative when we actually use it on our rule. So now we're ready to make that rule. We'll simply come over here to create. We'll say medical, or EE, medical deduction. This could be a deduction, though in reality, it's actually tax exempt. So we have a variety of different categories that we could use for that. In this particular case, it's going to be a deduction that's FICA, FIT, FICA, and food exempt, meaning in medical deduction, I'm just assuming that this one is okay under publication 15B in IRS. We'll say EE med, and we'll sequence this once again somewhere after gross, but in this case, it has to be before some of the other ones, meaning FIT and FICA and things like that. So let's go ahead and put this at 101 to be right after gross. Okay. The condition based on, we could use the Python expression again, but in this case, we're actually going to come down here for Python code for here and do similar things. So we have a contract, which means that in general, this is going to be the same as before. We're going to say result equals contract.x_dead medical. And I did mention it needs to be negative, so let me go ahead and go and do that real fast. Medical provider. Save. Might as well come on over here and run our accounting default as well. I don't need to be there to do it, and I could select all the rules, but let's go find our payslips here. And it should be the same essentially for both people, but if we compute sheet on Hedwig here, we should get no medical deduction because we didn't fill out the contract. And if we come over here to OWL, who we did, and compute sheet, we'll now get a medical deduction of $133. Now, because of the particular category that I put it in, you'll note that the amount for things like FICA was reduced by that because of the category that I used. And that's kind of the point of the category, right? So that's 2 down. Let's go and work on our last one, which is a per payslip thing. So we are going to essentially be adding other inputs here. So to do that, we actually need to go to configuration, other input types. We'll go ahead and create a new one. We'll say that this is bonus. And the code here is very important because it needs to be something that you can use through the like dot notation. So like something like all caps bonus will be perfectly fine. But you will want to avoid using spaces and stuff in principle there. Now we could have limited it to a certain structure as well, but that's all right. So now we need to come and create a new rule. So we'll say bonus. This will go ahead and just use allowance for the time being. It could be, it's probably more closely basic. So let's go ahead and do that. And we'll say basic bonus. Sequence 5 is perfectly fine. It just needs to happen before gross, right? Salary structure appears on payslip. Of course it is. Now we're going to go ahead and combine both of our things. So we're going to use a Python expression, and we're going to use this inputs, and we're going to use .bonus to get the amount. So we're going to say result equals inputs.bonus.amount greater than bonus, and inputs.bonus.amount is greater than 0. And down here, we're going to choose Python code. Clear that. We'll say result equals inputs.bonus.amount. And we need no partner because it's actually going directly to the employee. And once again, if we come on over here and do this, we'll see that we get salary expenses as our default. So that's all that there is to that. So if we go back over to our payslips, say for example, Hedwig here, we can edit this, add our bonus line, give it an amount, and save. Come over to salary computation and hit compute sheet. And you'll note that we have now a basic wage that was from our contract. We have a basic bonus, which is the $2,000 there that we just typed in into our line, right? That's what it means to be a per payslip, right? Is that we have some kind of input, worked days or other inputs or something that goes into it. And that just went into gross, etc., right? The way that we'd expect. So again, we have covered essentially 3 different scenarios. The garnishment style, which is essentially a rule that is per employee. The contract or employee form data, which is a very common pattern to see where you need an amount or something that's on the contract, usually in new fields or something like that. Keep in mind that you can get really creative here. You know, there's a lot of fields and dates and stuff like that that you can use to trigger, rules and stuff only when they've passed their trial period and stuff like that. And lastly, the per payslip input kind of type as well. So all of that data, or all of those rules, were essentially just like new rules that are specific to this company, like customization. But I'd like to go ahead and demonstrate some of the Odoo specific or EBU specific modules. So I've already installed a module that we make. We make rules for handling commissions, pay based on attendance, and gamification badges as bonuses as well. But I went ahead and installed our timesheet based one. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that. So we'll go ahead and pop out of payroll. We'll go ahead and go, so timesheets, but we're also going to talk about overtime. Forget to mention that. So let's do that. So let's talk about that overtime first before we make the timesheets. Maybe we'll make the timesheets first. So let's go ahead and go to all timesheets. We'll add a line here for OWL, and we'll say that it's office design, and they work 8 hours. Okay, we'll go ahead and add another line for the very next day, or maybe the day before, which office design as well, and we'll say that this one was, let's just say 9 hours for the sake of our commit. We'll go ahead and hit save there. Obviously, you could have more than one timesheet on a day, but this is just an example, right? So we've got 2 timesheets in. We're expecting something on the order of 17 hours, but one of those hours I want to make into overtime. So when we installed the module, we got some new stuff in work entry types. So work entry types, and the new ones that we got are specifically timesheets coded TS and timesheets overtime coded TS_OT. Now on the timesheet one, you'll note a couple of new fields here. One is the overtime work type, which is essentially just what line is going to appear on the payslip when they actually go into overtime. And the other one is going to be called default, or the overtime rules, like how it works. We install a default rules, and we'll go ahead and take a look at it right now. So the default rules for us means that anything over 40 hours in a work week is essentially, a overtime time. And also some certain markets, California is a good example, provides a overtime per day. So we'll use that mechanism. We'll come over to the hours per day and we'll put in 8 here. So likewise, we have a multiplier. So sometimes like you might have a 2x multiplier on weekends or something like that. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and hit save, and we'll come back out to our payslips. we will need to make a modification. So we can either make a new payslip, or we can use a little trick, which is that if we change the date range on this, it'll do a computation again. Sorry. I actually need to change the contract, because making the timesheets isn't enough. We need to come over to the salary information for those paid hourly timesheets. You'll note 401k as well, which is another module we have. So that changes the hour right there. Ignore that. That's part of the stock Odoo, but it's per structure type, so it doesn't really work for us. So we'll have a blend essentially, right, of employees that one of the employees is paid off of the default mechanisms, and the other one, in this case OWL, when we change, because of the fact that we changed that, when we change our stuff here, and did I change the wrong one? Okay, so that's good. And say edit here. Let's just make a new one. Discard, create a new payslip for OWL. All right, there it is. So, and I may have actually missed that. I think I might have made the other timesheet for the wrong employee, and I say that because of this. So let's go ahead and cancel this payslip and delete it. We may only be able to delete draft ones. All right, let's go back out to all the timesheets there. I see what we did here. Okay, so let's go ahead and just add another line. We'll choose OWL this time. My mistake here. And we'll choose a different day. And we'll choose 9 hours. Okay. All right, with that done, let's go ahead and make one more payslip here. And like magic, we have 2 days worked, but 16 hours for a total of $80,000, because I should have normalized the timesheet data there to be per hour. But regardless, we also have 1 hour of overtime, and now obviously we have a salary sheet that's completely realistic for this employee and definitely not a problem. So to recap a little bit, we've definitely made a whole bunch of rules, and I hope that you can kind of take and pick from those different patterns and recognize that the majority of rules that employees or companies need to customize their payroll are really within your reach already, just by making rules and thoroughly testing them in different scenarios. So we also learned about how Odoo provides a whole bunch of different modules for a bunch of different functionality, including the timesheets on Payslips. Look at this, we can just jump right on over here to see those timesheets that were on that particular payslip. Overtime, 401k, all of these things. What's next? Maybe Canadian payroll localization, could be in the works. Definitely remitting to the US bodies and stuff is also in the works. So with that, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I look forward to looking at or assisting with any questions that come up. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. So thank you for attending this amazing presentation of Jared. So we will start now the Q&A session. So it's the occasion to start asking all of your questions. In between, I may have a few questions to you, Jared.
Sure.
So can you maybe explain to us how you can handle paying employees with timesheets?
Sure. So essentially, it's as easy as installing the module. It's called like Payroll Timesheets or something like that. After that, you would check a box on the employee's contract to indicate that they were paid by timesheets. And at that point, when you create payslips, it will gather all the timesheets in the period that aren't already on a payslip and put those on the payslip at the hourly rate. So you would theoretically change the wage to be an hourly wage as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. And how many states are included in Odoo's US payroll?
Yeah, so we have all the states, or at least we think we do. We've got probably some edges out there that we need to button down or whatever, but we should have all of them at this point.
Okay, and is your module available for the new version, so the version 14?
Well, version 14 is as new to us as it is to anybody
Yeah.
else, so we'll obviously be trying to migrate it to it as soon as possible. But I haven't taken that undertaking up yet. I do have 14 builds going in our pipelines and stuff like that right now, but I haven't tried to migrate payroll yet.
It seems I have a question from Al Husseini, Ali, who is asking, what is work entry type?
Work entry types are essentially just Odoo's mechanism to be able to say whether you were, for example, being on, if you're clocked in, were you on break or were you actually working and things like that. So we have extended Odoo's out of the box 13 work entry types quite a bit in 13 to add the ability to choose different work types at attendance clock in, to be able to choose different attendance types on timesheets and things, or work types and stuff on timesheets as well. And that all goes into various, generally speaking, customizations that you could, have different rates or something on different work entry types.
And he would like to understand how it works exactly.
Well, how which part works, right? So work entry types are just part of Odoo. It's just essentially tagging in different work entries with a work entry type to say whether you were attendance or sick or something like that. They work ultimately in their own module. So for example, our payroll timesheet stuff adds work entry types for timesheets and timesheets overtime, because it automatically hooks in with the overtime stuff. So there's two different work entry types that are essentially just different ways of having line splits out for normal time versus overtime and stuff.
So thank you for your reply, Jared. I have another question from Anon, who is asking, can we generate payslips in batch with specific time period selected?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, you can. Yeah, I'm pretty sure out of the box. I have that database pulled up real fast. I can just go into the batch form. I won't share my screen unless, yeah. So that is definitely possible. Let me share my screen here. I can do that fast enough. Boom. All right. So here's just a brand new payslip batch, and you have a period selected right there. So you definitely can make batches over certain periods.
Perfect. So Fenisha is asking, what does made a payment order? She means in the payslip.
So we have a module called Payroll Payments or something to that effect, and that adds a bunch of hooks onto both batches and per payslips to be able to create essentially payments directly to the employees. So it's not intended to pay the government remittance and stuff like that. It's intended to pay the employees, but you can set up relatively easily. You can set it up to be able to just make a whole bunch of checks or something like that off of your batch, and they would all be in a batch print off that you can generate ACH files and stuff like that for as well. So you could do direct deposit off that batch, you could do anything, but you could also just pay a pay slip off a batch and just make a check right then there too, just as if it was an invoice.
I will ask you a completely other question, Jared, but maybe that you could tell us a successful story that you get with the customer, for instance.
Sure. So generally speaking, the success in payroll and Odoo really comes down to the fact that you can have some part of your workforce maybe works through attendance, and some part of them may work through timesheets. Some part of them are salaried or work some kind of working schedule or something. And oftentimes you have potentially different rates depending on what they're doing. And the more complexity that you have that decides like how you pay your employees and what data you need to keep track of and stuff like that. That's where Odoo shines. So we have clients that have those kind of workforces that some of them are attendants, some of them aren't, and the ability to have more flexibility than what out of the box just gives you for the working schedule is very, very useful for bigger companies.
So actually time flies, so we will have already to stop the Q&A session. So sure. What I can propose to you, because I can see that Fenisha has still an opening question, but will not have the time to answer it directly here. So what I can propose to Fenisha and to all the other people who are still interested to know more about your module or eventually the other modules you may have or you may propose, is that in a few seconds we will have a link that will appear on the chatter. So to all the attendees, you can click on this link and you will be redirected in a video conference directly with Jared to discuss all of this topic in further detail. So thank you for your time, and wish you to all a very nice Odoo experience and a nice evening or a nice afternoon, depending from where you come. Thank you.
Thank you.